Hey eBay sellers, it's Suzanne A. Wells, and I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I created this video in 2019 and posted it in my premium library, so this is another free sample for you. So be sure and check out the full playlist of free samples of my premium content. I've been seeing more and more people struggling with if they should sell on Amazon in addition to eBay, and I wanted to put my story out there because I started selling on Amazon when it was first opened up to third-party sellers. So I saw a lot that current sellers don't see. A lot has changed over the years, but many of you have asked why I don't sell on Amazon. So this is the full story. Hey eBay sellers, it's Suzanne, and I wanted to take a few minutes to share with you my journey on Amazon. A lot of you know I used to sell on Amazon, but I've never really explained why I stopped. And paralleling that, many of you are asking if you should be selling on Amazon, if that's something you should be adding to your e-commerce business. So all I can tell you is what happened to me and the pros and cons from my perspective. And I just want you to be informed about this decision if you decide to sell there or if you're even thinking about it, because as always, there's a lot of information on the internet about why you should be selling on Amazon. You're missing out if you're not selling on Amazon. And I just don't feel like that's true. So let me go through these points with you, and then you can make an informed decision about if you want to go that route. Okay, there's three different segments I'm going to go through here. One is marketplace issues. Another is Amazon policy and procedure issues. And finally, business model issues. And I have my list here so I won't forget anything. Okay, I got started on Amazon back in 2009. They had just opened up the platform to third-party sellers. And that's what you're called if you list your items on Amazon for sale. Amazon itself sells items as well, and those are usually the ones that are the best deal or priced the lowest. I started off with toys because in my mom's groups, that's what a lot of moms did, is they sold toys online during fourth quarter to make a little extra money to pay for their own kids' holidays. Then I learned how to sell books. So I was very deep in the Amazon world from 2009 to about 2014. So let's start off with marketplace issues. When Amazon opened its doors to third-party sellers, there was a mass exodus from eBay to Amazon. And there were things going on the eBay platform at the time that people didn't like. They had recently, I think it was 2008, they took away the ability for sellers to leave negative feedback for buyers, and that was a big deal. People were very upset about that. And they, as they do from time to time, had raised the fees for selling, and it was just a combination of things where people were looking for another way to sell. They were they've had it with eBay, they want to find something else, and Amazon was the next thing. So there were a lot of sellers coming at one time, and that created problems because it was growth that was too fast that Amazon couldn't really handle. So you had a lot of competition and a lot of new people from about 2010 to 2013. A lot of new people that didn't know what they were doing, they didn't bother to learn, and they kind of messed up the system for all of us who had been there and were doing things correctly. A lot of people left eBay because of the FBA system, which is fulfillment by Amazon. That's where you ship your items into warehouses, and then Amazon ships them when they sell. And that was very attractive to people because they could travel, they could be busy with their own lives and not have to worry about shipping items. So that was one big draw. But what happened with so many new sellers coming at once was products were oversaturated. And when I'm talking about my Amazon experience, I'm referring to retail arbitrage. That is when you buy an item in a retail store or some other platform anywhere, and then you sell it on Amazon. So retail arbitrage is buying in one space, selling in a different space. And usually you have different customers shopping the different sites. So while it sounds like, why would anybody pay more on Amazon? They actually did because of Amazon Prime. Only certain items were eligible for Prime. So once you understood the system and knew how to sell that way, you could make a lot of money selling retail items. I specialized in groceries. I sold all kinds of specialty items, seasonal items, such as the seasonal flavored cake mixes, frostings, the coffee creamer that was powdered, the pumpkin and the candy cane flavor, all that stuff that comes out around the holidays. I started selling that online on Amazon FBA. For a historical reference and for fun, this is a post on my eBay Selling Coach blog, which I wrote on from 2007 until about 2018 when blogs were no longer cool and everyone was on YouTube. So the blog is still there, but it's kind of like a dinosaur. Anyway, here's a post from 2013 where I recapped my Amazon business, showing what was possible and how I made money. So my total product sales, now this is not profit, this was sales, was just under $70,000. And I was doing Amazon and eBay and coaching and a whole bunch of stuff. So it wasn't my full-time gig. But I go through here and explain the different kinds of items I sold. 223 orders for cereal, which was an average of 18 orders a month. 140 orders for coffee, which was an average of 11 orders a month. 90 orders for lemon flavored items. And 67 orders for condoms. Many of those were multiples. So it's kind of fun to look back and see how that business evolved. And I actually wrote a course for other people to learn how to sell groceries on Amazon. But again, your business constantly changes and evolves. Amazon's very different now, but that was during this time frame that I'm talking about. But as all good things do, they come to an end, and too many people found out about it and started doing that and started driving the prices down. So products that I was selling, maybe I was buying them for $1, selling them for 10 or 15. You couldn't do that anymore. Too many sellers drove the prices down and they got greedy, and then a lot of people couldn't make any money at all. So basically my profits kept shrinking selling the same items because too many sellers would have the same item and too many of them were willing to take less and less to where their profit margins on these items was just nothing. The challenge with retail arbitrage is you always have to be hunting for the next thing. What's the next hot item that you can flip on Amazon that's either a regional item, it's just in your area, or it's a seasonal flavor of something, or it's a new product on the market. You're constantly looking for that all the time moving forward, looking for the next thing. You can't really ever just glide along on what you know because the consumer products market is always changing. So it's very exhausting, very hard to keep up. And in addition to that, you've got all these other sellers that as soon as you figure something out, other people are going to figure it out too, and they're right behind you dropping the price. So it just became impossible to make any money. Then on top of that, people started coming out with automated repricing tools, which means these were subscription services you could pay for to monitor the Amazon marketplace for certain products. If you had the same product, it would automatically drop your price to be the lowest of anybody. Well, when you get a whole bunch of people doing this same thing, it just becomes prices dropping just automatically. And you just never knew from day to day how much your product would be selling for. And on top of that, sometimes Amazon would get the product in stock and they can sell it for less than anybody. So things that we were selling for $25 that might have cost us $3, Amazon would have it for 9 or 10. So you can't compete with that. So it was a very volatile marketplace, very unpredictable, and very anxiety producing. It just got to be where it wasn't even fun anymore. Okay, the next topic is Amazon policy and procedure issues. Amazon is a very different marketplace than eBay. If you've never sold on it, you wouldn't know this, but the rules are completely different and the marketplace is completely different. One issue that I had was you could not correspond directly with a customer like you can on eBay. So if you're selling on eBay, somebody has a problem, you ship them the wrong item, you ship something that you missed a defect on, you can work that out. You can arrange a return, a replacement, you can correspond back and forth with them and do a partial refund. You can work it out however you want to. On Amazon, you can't do that. You don't have open communication with your buyer. You don't even have a way to contact them. So if a problem happened, so if the warehouse sent the wrong item and the buyer left you negative feedback, there's nothing you can do about it. You just had to let Amazon handle everything. And I just felt like that was very wrong. It was very uncomfortable to not be able to solve your own problems and to not be able to talk with the customer and figure out a solution. Now, while people thought the FBA system was great, it was a godsend, oh, I don't have to ship any of my stuff, it actually became a nightmare. Because what happened when I started, there was either 3 or 4 fulfillment centers. And when you were preparing your order to send your items in, you would send everything to whichever warehouse they picked for you. Well, as time went on and Amazon got bigger and promised to ship faster, now I think in some places it's same-day shipping. They started shuffling all of our merchandise around the country. So let's say you sent in 25 of something, of a product you got at Walmart or wherever, and it all went to one warehouse. Amazon would break that up and they would shuffle it and send it out to different warehouses in the middle of the country, on both the east and the west coast, north of the country, south of the country, and your stuff got spread out all over the place. So you never even really knew where it was. There was supposed to be a way to see which warehouses your items were in, but that was not always updated. It was not always correct. So, as you can imagine, things got lost. And you had to constantly stay on top of how much you have in inventory, where it is, and if there's a shortage or a loss of an item, you as the seller had to be proactive and call Amazon, explain what's going on, try to get your money back for that item, because they would lose things between warehouses. And you know, it's one thing if it's cake mixes and Pop-Tarts, it's another thing if it's electronics and expensive toys. And a lot of sellers lost quite a bit of money. Again, Amazon was growing so fast, they didn't have their systems in place. As sellers, we paid the price because sometimes you wouldn't get refunded, even if you knew they lost your items. Another thing that happened is categories became gated, which means that you had to go to great lengths to prove yourself to even be able to sell in certain categories. So grocery actually did get gated after a while, and that was a good thing because it kept out this mass exodus from eBay, all these people who wanted to sell. You had to go through a protocol and certain steps to be approved for that category. But it also handicapped sellers who had been selling a long time because they basically had to start from square one to prove themselves to even be able to sell in some of these categories. So I felt like that was really unfair to sellers that had been there a long time. Now, another thing that happened was sometimes you'd have a product in stock and you'd have a large quantity, and all of a sudden Amazon wouldn't allow it anymore. My best example is Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I think this was in 2010, and they started selling that in Target stores. So I figured it out, which flavors to send in. that could sell for a premium because they weren't available everywhere yet. And I think I had 100 bags of Dunkin' Donuts coffee at various warehouses at this one particular moment. One day I get up, I check my email, and Dunkin' Donuts has said, nope, no more. We don't want to be on Amazon. No third-party sellers can sell our product. The only seller that's allowed is Amazon itself. So I had all this coffee that I had paid for. It was probably $7 a bag, so $700 worth of coffee in different warehouses that wasn't going to sell. So you had to pay to get your stuff back. So I was punished there. So I got all that coffee back because I wasn't allowed to sell it. And guess what everybody got for Christmas that year and the next year was gift packs of Dunkin' Donuts coffee. But this started happening more and more often. You buy your inventory, you'd send it in, and then the company that produced that product would say, nope, we don't want to be on Amazon, and it wouldn't be allowed. And that kept happening over and over again. So you can imagine the anxiety producing business this was. Just, you never knew what was going to hit you next. It was very unpredictable. And then you got to where, you know, you didn't know if you should buy things to resell because, like, what if this isn't allowed? It's going great today, but it could change tomorrow. And with consumer goods like that, it's you strike while the iron's hot. You try to get in, sell as much as you can, and then get out before the bottom falls out. One example was one year, University of Georgia partnered with whoever makes Pop-Tarts, is it Kellogg's? And they had these special UGA Georgia Bulldog Pop-Tarts. And I went around to like every Walmart and I bought probably 100 of them. Sent all those in. I think I paid like $3 a box and they sold for around 20. It was Christmas time, so what a great gift, right? And I made a ton of money on that. But that I got lucky on that one because I figured it out quickly, sold all my product quickly, and that was it. So Pop-Tarts was one of those oversaturated items because they have all these different flavors, but they're not available everywhere, and it's kind of a novelty item. So a bunch of sellers got on that, and then you couldn't make money on Pop-Tarts anymore. So I said all that just to say, you just never knew what was going to hit you next. And so it became like, this isn't even fun anymore. This is just too scary because like my money could just go down the drain. And a lot of it did. Amazon was almost the death of me in a lot of ways. And you know, that's why I came back to eBay, because I just didn't want to run a business like that anymore. Now, around this time, I think it was 2013 maybe, Amazon instituted its holiday return policy. So anything that was purchased from November 1st to December 31st could be returned in January with free shipping, I think. And already, those of us selling on Amazon had experienced what we called RETURNUARY in January, because what would happen is, especially with toys, there's, you know, a hot toy. I did the Monster High dolls, I did Nerf guns, I did Bratz dolls, I did that Doc McStuffins dolls, all kinds of Barbies, stuff like that was hard to find for Christmas for kids. And I would go around the Atlanta area and buy these at retail price, send them into Amazon, and they would sell for 3 to 4 times the shelf price. So it was a good business. But what would happen was, okay, so the mom buys the Nerf gun for the kid for $100 when it's at Walmart for $30, if it's in stock, okay? Wrap it up, put it under the tree. Kid opens it. Oh, I got my water gun. Yay, I'm happy. I got what I wanted for Christmas. Well, in January, the supply would catch up with the demand in the retail stores, and there's that water gun, that Nerf gun for regular retail price all over the place. So mom would go to Walmart, buy one for 30 bucks, return that one to Amazon, and I had to honor the return. They just take the money out of your account. You don't have a choice. So January was a horrible month because people caught on and they would just buy an item just for the sake of giving it for Christmas and then go switch it out with the same item after the Christmas rush and after supply caught up with demand and it was available locally. They could switch it out and then they really only paid retail for that item. So the return policy was just, it was just too much. You know, that's just not fair. You shouldn't be able to do that. You know, if you bought it, you bought it. But on this level I'm talking about, obviously, yes, we should honor returns, but Amazon's policy was just too liberal and I wasn't comfortable with that anymore. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is business model issues. So why is Amazon not so great in my mind? Well, first of all, it takes a lot more money up front to make money on Amazon, because if you're doing FBA, you've got to buy the product, sometimes in quantity, and send it into the warehouse. And all that costs money. So you've not only got your product cost, but you've got your shipping into the warehouses. If you want something back, you have to pay to get it back. And then you have your time investment of going through everything, labeling it, going through that whole process of getting the order ready to ship to the warehouse. So it's a lot of time and money up front. With eBay, you don't have that. You go to a thrift store, you buy some stuff, you come home, you list it, you get the money when it sells. So I incurred a lot of business credit card debt doing the Amazon business because you had to buy everything ahead of time and ship it in. And those are all upfront costs before you get paid for the item when it sells. Another problem was Amazon getting the product in stock and undercutting all the third-party sellers. So we couldn't compete anymore. You know, if Amazon gets it and they're the seller of it, forget it. You're not going to make any money. And again, you've already paid for the product, it's in the warehouses, and you have to pay to get it back, and then you have to do something with it. And by then, it's too late to return it to the stores. Actually, Target and Walmart caught on to this, and they cracked down on their return policies. You couldn't, you know, buy 100 of something and then go take it back to the store. That's just not practical anyway. I've already mentioned this, but there's a lot more work involved with an Amazon FBA business because the time investment in preparing the order, you have to input everything in the computer, print out these labels with barcodes, stick them on everything, prepare the items for shipment to the warehouse. If it's a breakable item, you've got to consider that and bubble wrap it and make sure it's not going to break on the way to the warehouse, and deal with your UPS pickups and all of that. So there's a lot of prep work on the front end before you ever even get it to the warehouse where it's up for sale. And then finally, it's the anxiety of this business just was too much for me. You just never knew what was going to hit you next. Things would be going along just fine. You're making all this money. And then, oh, you can't sell those 3 items anymore. And they may be your 3 top sellers that nobody else can get. And, you know, you just never knew from day to day what was going to happen. So eBay is much more predictable in that respect, that you can sell pretty much anything you want as long as it's allowed, and you have the inventory right there with you. So you can control your business a little bit better by having your inventory on site with yourself and not having it spread all across the country in these different warehouses. Okay, let me go over the ways I lost money selling on Amazon. And this is the part where I'm trying to warn you and protect you so this doesn't happen to you, because it was pretty crappy ordeal. It took me about 3 years to financially recover from the disaster that my Amazon business became, and that was just the nature of the business. Okay, as I mentioned, inventory was lost through the warehouse shuffle, either lost or damaged, and sometimes they just didn't reimburse you for it. After a while, they didn't. At first they did. It was a new problem, but then it kept happening to so many sellers, they no longer reimbursed you and you were just out that money. Inventory became prohibited, like the Dunkin' Donuts coffee, and you've already spent money on it and you have all this inventory, and what are you going to do with it? So some of that I had to sell at a loss just to get rid of it and get something back. So I did lose money there. Too many upfront costs before an item sells, meaning your investment in inventory and shipping it into the FBA warehouses. So you could do all this work and have this inventory, and items may not sell. Other sellers may undercut your price. Amazon may not allow it. So that was a loss. And my guess is people didn't even know they were losing money on these things because so many of them didn't track their profits and costs. I did some online coaching and had a lot of coaching clients. I taught how to sell on Amazon. And when we would have our weekly meetings, I'd say, okay, well, let's go over your numbers. And they're like, well, we didn't do them. We don't have them. We don't like to do that part. And so I guarantee more people lost money than we know because they just didn't track it. So after all that happened, I decided I'm 100% eBay. People ask me, do you sell on Poshmark, Mercari, all these other sites that are popping up? And no, I don't. I did sell on Etsy for a while, for about 2 years when it first launched, and I just couldn't get any traction there, and I didn't really like it. And I just don't have any desire to learn another platform. eBay has millions and millions of buyers that these other new sites will never have. They're too far behind. eBay's been around too long and they've built up a clientele. So I'm going to tap into that. Now, when I say I'm 100% eBay, it doesn't mean I make 100% of my money on eBay. I do other things. I have mentoring, I have my YouTube channel, I do writing on the side, I do a lot of different things. But as far as e-commerce, eBay, 100%. I don't want to learn another platform. I don't want to do any more experimenting. I've been down that road. And so let me give you the good news of why I stick with eBay 100%. First of all, your inventory costs are very low. You can go to a thrift store. If you only have 50 bucks, you can buy $50 worth of items. Sometimes that's 50 items. Go home, get those listed. By the time you get them all listed, some of them are selling, you can go back and buy more stuff. You don't have to pay to ship your items into warehouses, none of that. So I look at it as your inventory costs are much lower on eBay. Your upfront investment with time and money is much less on eBay. Payment is immediate. Now we do have the new managed payments and there's a couple of days of a lag time there. But for those of you that are still using PayPal only, payment's immediate. You get your money right away unless you're new and you still have that hold situation until your money releases. But you'll get past that. On Amazon, you had to wait 2 weeks to get your money. They only paid out every 2 weeks. And that was kind of crippling when you're trying to reinvest your money back into more inventory and keep it going. Getting paid every 2 weeks was kind of tough. So don't complain about the managed payments being a couple of days behind because it could be 2 weeks like on Amazon. Okay, on eBay, you have less competition for used, collectible, and vintage items. When you're doing retail arbitrage, you're at the mercy of everybody else who might figure out what you're doing and copy that. But when you're a picker, and you're choosing things that are vintage, that are limited in number, or even clothing and shoes that are a specific size, style, color, all of that, your pool of competitors shrinks dramatically. So as long as you have a variety of offerings and you're selling pre-owned, vintage, collectible type items, your competition is really a lot less than if you were selling brand new items. There's no gated categories on eBay. If it's allowed, you can sell it. And that's not true on Amazon. And trust me, it takes a lot of work and preparation to get approved to sell in some of these categories. In fact, there are people who have come up with courses or, pay me this much money and I'll get you in and all this kind of stuff to work around that system, which I'm not a fan of any of that. You don't have to do that on eBay.
You don't have to do that on eBay. You can just start selling. And this helps me sleep at night. I always know where my inventory is. I don't have to worry about if it's getting shuffled around in different warehouses, or is it lost, is it damaged. I know exactly where it is. I see it every day, and I'm in control of that situation. And that is just a huge relief after you've been through the FBA system, where you really don't know where your inventory is a lot of the time. On eBay, I have direct communication with my customers, and I can solve problems myself. And I feel more powerful in that situation than on Amazon, where you couldn't even message your buyer to solve a problem. They just did not allow that. So I was really uncomfortable with that. And I just enjoy picking better than restocking, which was what I was doing in the grocery business. It was just a matter of going out a couple of times a week on a route to certain stores, restocking items and sending those in. That got really boring. The project of putting together this shipment to send into the Amazon warehouse, sometimes I would have 10 huge moving boxes full of stuff. That was a very physical job, and I just didn't like it. It just got too monotonous and boring, and there just wasn't really a challenge anymore. Now, one asset to eBay is, once you figure out something is a good seller, it stays a good seller for a pretty long time. So let me use Chico's clothing, for example. I figured that out early on in my eBay career. At this point, I don't pick up every Chico's piece I see, but usually Chico's Traveler size 3, either in black, or if it's something with beaded or sequins on it, I kind of know what to pick. But that has been a good seller for me for 15 years. And you can't say that on Amazon about retail arbitrage, because things change very quickly. And once you figure something out, it's not long until other people figure it out too, and then you've got to start over. So there is a longevity aspect to what you learn on eBay and being able to apply it. Yes, over time, things fizzle out and they don't really work anymore, but it's not as fast as it is when you're doing retail arbitrage. Things stay good sellers for usually a few years before you decide, that's just not working out for me anymore. I'm not going to do that. And then you learn what's coming along that's new. But you have a confidence that, I'm on top of this. I know what's going on now. This isn't going to change overnight. Usually it doesn't on eBay. I can't really think of many examples where eBay has said, you can't sell that anymore. I really can't think of anything offhand that I ever had up for sale that eBay said, you're not allowed to sell that, unless it was a Vero violation. There's been a couple of those, but it's not like figuring out the pumpkin spice Starbucks coffee, buying 25 of them, sending those in, and then 3 days later they say, nope, you can't sell that. That doesn't happen on eBay, which makes it much less anxiety producing than on Amazon, where it's such a faster pace with retail items. And that brings me to my final point. I like the pace of eBay. It's predictable. I'm comfortable there. There's not usually any surprises. If there are, it's pretty easily dealt with. You just make that change and keep moving on. I just feel like eBay is a less stressful business. You can have fun doing it. You can enjoy it. You can make it as big as you want. You can make it as small as you want. And there's just a lot more flexibility, but still control, because with that Amazon FBA warehouse business, there was just too much control handed over to them. And with control is money, and we're all in this to make money. So I hope my story will help you if you're deciding whether or not you should sell on Amazon. There's a lot of pluses to it, and a lot of people love it and are very successful, but I just want you to know the downsides too, in case you decide to go that direction. You'll know what to look out for.
And just a reminder, if you have not yet joined my Be a Better Picker Challenge for 2020, the link is below the video. It's totally free. come on over and join us and state your goals for the year. We're going to have monthly check-ins, or you can check in whenever you want, so that we can all have a more profitable and productive year on eBay. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.